The moment the words landed in the air, the room seemed to lose its breath. The single father stood still, his voice calm but unshakable, and the meaning behind what he said cut deeper than any shout ever could. Across the polished dining table, the billionaire heiress froze, her confidence slipping for the first time, her perfectly composed world cracking under the weight of a truth she never expected to hear. In that silence, something irreversible began, something that would change all of them forever. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a second right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet courage, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. Ethan Walker had learned long ago that life rarely announces its storms. They arrived quietly, disguised as ordinary days, and left wreckage behind without apology. He had been a devoted husband once, the kind who remembered anniversaries and brewed coffee every morning without being asked. When illness took his wife, it didn't just steal her breath, it hollowed out their home. What remained was Ethan and his 6-year-old daughter Lily, navigating a world that suddenly felt too loud and too fast for two broken hearts. Bills stacked higher than bedtime storybooks, and grief sat beside them at the dinner table every night. Ethan worked long hours as a facilities supervisor in a corporate tower he could never afford to dream about. He wore exhaustion like a second skin, but never let Lily see it. To her, he was still the strongest man alive. The building where Ethan worked belonged to the Caldwell Group, a global empire built on steel, data, and ruthless ambition. At the top of that empire stood Victoria Caldwell, the only daughter of a magnate who believed emotions were liabilities. Victoria had been raised among chandeliers and private jets, taught to win before she learned to walk. Her life was carefully curated, every move documented, every relationship evaluated for value. Compassion was something discussed in boardrooms, not practiced. To the world, she was brilliance and beauty wrapped in icy control. To herself, she was lonely in ways money could never solve. Fate, indifferent and precise, collided their worlds on an evening meant to impress investors. A charity gala filled the Caldwell Tower with silk gowns and tailored suits, while staff moved like shadows along the walls. Ethan had brought Lily along because he couldn't afford a sitter and didn't trust strangers with his whole world. She wore a simple blue dress, her small hand clutching his, eyes wide with wonder at the glittering room. Whispers followed them, not cruel, just curious. They didn't belong there, and everyone knew it. Victoria noticed them immediately, not because she cared, but because Lily's laughter rang out clear and unfiltered, slicing through the polished hum of wealth. Something about that sound unsettled her. Later, when a scheduling mishap threatened to derail the evening, fingers quietly pointed at Ethan. He was the easiest target. A staff member with a child at a billionaire's table was an inconvenience, an embarrassment waiting to happen. Pressure built like a tightening vice. Managers hovered, eyes sharp with judgment. Victoria approached the table, her presence commanding silence. She intended to correct the situation, to restore order, to remind everyone where lines were drawn. Ethan sensed it before she spoke. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the instinct to shield Lily from another rejection, another reminder that they were outsiders. And then it happened. Ethan placed his hand gently on Lily's shoulder and spoke with a steadiness that surprised even himself. He claimed her place without anger, without pleading, simply stating a truth he refused to surrender. The effect was immediate. Victoria stopped. For the first time in years, someone had not bent, not flattered, not feared her. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't asked permission. He had simply stood his ground for someone he loved. The room watched, breath held. Victoria felt heat rise to her face, not from humiliation, but from something far more unsettling. Respect. Confusion. A crack in the armor she had spent a lifetime perfecting. She walked away that night without another word, but the image of that man and his child stayed with her long after the guests left and the lights dimmed. Days turned into weeks, and life returned to its rhythm. But something had shifted. Ethan found small mercies he hadn't expected. His supervisors treated him differently, with a cautious respect that bordered on admiration. An anonymous scholarship appeared for Lily's school. Repairs he had reported months ago were suddenly prioritized. He didn't know why, and he didn't ask. He had learned gratitude didn't require explanations. Victoria, meanwhile, couldn't forget. She began noticing things she had trained herself to ignore. The janitor who hummed while working late. The intern who skipped lunch to meet a deadline. And always the image of a man who had nothing, yet stood as though he owned the world, because love made him fearless. She started watching Ethan from a distance, not with suspicion, but curiosity. She saw the way he knelt to Lily's level, how his tired eyes softened when she spoke, how he carried dignity like an unspoken vow. When Victoria's father fell ill, the empire shook. Board members circled like vultures, questioning her leadership, measuring her worth in quarterly projections. For the first time, Victoria felt small. She stayed late in the office, nights stretching into dawn, the silence pressing in. One evening, the building nearly empty, she crossed paths with Ethan again. He was fixing a light, Lily asleep in a chair nearby, wrapped in his jacket. The scene struck her harder than any boardroom betrayal. There was peace there. Not the kind money bought, but the kind earned through endurance. From that night on, Victoria began changing in ways no one could quantify. She instituted policies that prioritized families, quietly at first, then boldly. She started a foundation not for headlines, but for impact. Employees whispered that the Caldwell Group felt different, more human. They didn't know why, only that it did. Ethan never sought her attention, never leveraged the moment that had linked them. He continued working, loving, surviving. When Lily fell ill one winter, medical bills threatened to drown them. Pride battled desperation until a letter arrived offering help, no strings attached. Ethan understood then. He accepted, not as charity, but as kindness, and something inside him healed a little. Years passed. Lily grew, her laughter stronger than ever. Victoria stood before a mirror one morning and barely recognized the woman looking back. Softer, steadier, alive in ways success had never granted her. She thought of that night, of a simple declaration that had exposed the emptiness of her world and shown her a better way to live. At a company anniversary event, not nearly as lavish as before, but filled with genuine warmth, Victoria took the stage. She spoke about legacy, not measured in wealth, but in the lives we protect and uplift. Her eyes found Ethan and Lily in the crowd. He stood taller now, not because life had become easy, but because hope had finally joined him. If this story is touching something deep inside you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs reassurance, and let us know you're here. Your engagement keeps these stories alive. Just before we reach the end, we'd love to hear from you, so please comment what this story made you feel, or who it reminded you of. The truth was simple and powerful. One calm sentence, spoken by a tired father, had reminded a powerful woman of her humanity. Love had stood its ground without shouting, and kindness had rewritten a destiny shaped by fear and wealth. In a world obsessed with status, A single dad chose dignity, and a billionaire heiress learned that the greatest power comes from standing with those who matter most.